I have like 500 tabs open. It was supposed to be an experiment. Like when I first got it, I'm like, oh, I'll open like see how long it takes to open 500, and I opened everything in a new tab, and then I regretted it once they were full. Not tab, whatever they're called.
Sorry about the first part of that. I thought I had muted, but all I had actually done was selected the screen with Mastermind on it.
Test, test, test.
Yeah. You're testy enough.
What if you open two windows on the same device? If I open another one, will it be weird, echoey?
It depends on how many mic connections you have open.
Will it?
Okay. So we've got YouTube is running. Let me get Facebook running.
I'm back.
Hey, Lyle, how are you?
Oh.
Good.
Is somebody talking? I don't hear anything.
No, nobody's talking. Hey, Lyle, what site are you working out of?
Oh. Hello?
Well, I support Gates on Mondays, and then I run Riga on Wednesday afternoons and Child Life Community Center Thursday and Friday mornings.
Okay. Steve, if you can hear me, wave. Okay, I just can't hear.
What?
Have to set your microphone, and
I'm just going to close and come back.
may not have picked the right microphone.
Oh, that didn't work.
All right, now FaceTime. Facebook is running now. Facebook is running. YouTube is running. I think we're ready to go.
So, Steve, what's the significance of the list of names that are just across like the little pictures, because names keep popping up and going away there?
At the top?
Yeah.
That's who's talking.
So those are the people that don't have their mics muted.
Yeah. Or who are intentionally talking.
Oh. I can hear again.
And we heard
Here.
And it's 0208. All right. Gonna join us, widget? See what the cat wants to climb on. Oh, I need my little note page. Hang on a minute.
Can you put the gate up for me?
Yeah. Widget's on the couch looking at me.
Is somebody
No.
eating?
I don't want him here.
Shirley, I never pictured you living in a gated community.
Well, I have the cat likes to come in here and we keep him out because he likes to hide among everything. And so we have a baby gate up that keeps him. And since I'm in here, he'll want to come in here. And after he gets through Bug and Steve, he'll decide he wants to come see what I'm doing.
I'm surprised you just doesn't it right up over a baby gate.
They do not jump it because it's so not attached solidly, so they know if they touch it,
Oh.
it falls over.
Oh.
So they're too afraid of that whole thing that they don't bother.
But they could
So it
easily
works
so
out
it
fall
well.
over it.
works. Yeah.
Well, I could shut the door too, but we usually just put the little gate
It
up just to have
it
the.
gets awful stuffy in there. There's
And
no
there's a lot of
ventilation.
light comes from that room too into the hallway. So. So does everybody seem to be up to par here, Steve, or that we can officially start?
Well, we got 8 people in the lounge and 1 on YouTube.
All right. All right. So it's 7:08. So let's officially start. We're actually getting closer and closer to our actual starting time of 7 o'clock. So that's pretty good. We seem to be getting away from all the problems with trying to get in. So that's good. So it's February 8th, 2023. It was a nice day today. It was warm, no snow. So a great day. All right. Steve, you want to start us off with what? Apple News?
Yeah, let's see if this will work. News. So what was... No, I didn't want news. I wanted the news desk. Well, one of the things. Are you seeing the new page in the Chrome tab? Yeah, you are. Okay. One of the things that Apple recently did is they updated their website. So the buttons across the top now spawn menus. So you can go.
So what should we be seeing, Steve? All I'm seeing is the Apple CIDER Macintosh Users Group.
You should be seeing the Apple web page.
Nope.
Nope.
That's what I'm seeing in the shared window.
Well, it works for you.
We're all seeing the CIDER page.
Oh, okay. It's sharing a tab, not a window. So how is it?
Yep.
How is it working on YouTube then? All right, let me stop that, and I'm going to share the entire window, not just that tab. Where did it go? Not Safari. Oh, this one. Okay, that's going to get confusing if I share the lounge to the lounge. That'll be strange.
All right.
Unless
It's working.
all right, I have a better idea. I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to use Safari to share the websites and Chrome to run the meeting. Window, this Safari window, okay. And now OBS. Should give me that. Alright, so make that bigger.
Good evening, Carol.
Hi.
Alright, so now you can see the CIDER website, right?
Yes.
9, 2, okay. And the YouTube is not quite right. Hang on just a second. Can I make that bigger?
I'm holding you personally responsible, Shirley, because you said, well, we're getting everything straightened out. This is all
Yeah, I cursed it.
Well, I suppose I can put the public chat on YouTube, but I just don't want the private chat on YouTube. Oh, I can crop a window. Hang on a minute. How do I crop this window versus... Oop, somebody's playing the news.
I'll close the door.
Yeah. It's got to be Bob.
Yep. All right, Mac OS screen.
Oh, and thanks for providing the link for the Chrome browser. I was finally able to download it.
All right, hang on a minute. So if I move this over here and crop. There we go. I can crop all that out. And if I crop this out, I can make the window bigger.
Okay, Bob, we can hear you. We can hear your TV.
Okay. Want me to change channel?
Well, you can just mute yourself and then you could listen yourself and we're fine.
Okay.
It's doable.
All right, that works better for YouTube. All right. So, Apple website. The buttons across the top, they've been updated so they now drop a menu down rather than needing to click on it and then going into the next section. So that's just a little navigation aid, so you don't have to tunnel so far. You can jump right to where you were looking for. And they added an Apple logo to the website, so it looks just like your menu bar. I suppose that's intentional. So did we talk about the HomePod last month? I forget when it was announced. So they brought the big HomePod back after we sold a bunch of them in the store at higher than retail price because people really wanted the big HomePod. They brought it back with better quality, better audio, profound sound, and a lower price, down at $299 now. That was one of the original complaints about the HomePod, the big HomePod, is it was too expensive. I think it was $399 to start. So by having a lower price, that helps as well. Apple's amazing engineering. The thing is sort of designed to go in the center of a room, but you can put it in the corners, and it bounces sound off the walls, and it can really fill a room with all the speakers and mics it has for attenuating the music, or audio in general. Let's see, and Apple has their all their cool videos. So they have a new spatial audio where it can mimic, front and rear, left and right, and top and bottom speakers, which is typically in a 7.1 surround system, or 7.2 even. And so the HomePod can actually do that now, and you can pair them together to get even more sound. And what's interesting is Apple Silicon unlocks all these advanced things. It always was based on Apple Silicon. It was based on some of the iPhone chips. So I'm not sure if it says anywhere which chip it's based on. But the iPhone chip and the Mac chips are very well related right now. Let's see, and you can pair them together. And so with an Apple TV, you can do the cinematic sound. With the newer Apple TVs that have Dolby Atmos. Let's see, anything else interesting here? You pair it with your phone. It's got Siri built in, so you can use it to trigger her to answer questions and things. And let's see some of the cute stuff. There's a temperature and humidity sensor in it. And that will help tie into other home automation things. So as they say here, you can set the automation so that it closes the blinds when it hits 80 degrees. Or if it gets too humid, you can turn on an automatic dehumidifier. Or if it's not humid enough, you can turn on the humidifier. I just get a kick out of, in the winter we run the dehumidifiers to cut down on static, and in the summer we run humidifiers because, or vice versa. And of course, you should buy one for every room in the house. And you could maybe go with the HomePod Mini in the bedrooms, but the big HomePod for the home theater. And it's has a intercom system built into it, so each HomePod has a name, so you can tell everyone, and it will say on all the HomePods, or you can give specific names. One one of the jokes we've heard is that trying to get the kid to wake up in the morning, you tell their HomePod to play horrible music for him. So let's see. Yeah, there's a neat little thing here where you can use AR mode on your phone, and it will use the camera on your phone to place a HomePod on your table or in anywhere you want in your house, so you can see what it's going to look like in your house before you actually buy it. And they're offering 6 months of free Apple Music with the subscription. So one of the big things they intend to use it for is playing your music. The little HomePod for $99, probably good for smaller rooms where you don't need to have the rich fidelity of like a home theater room. Let me see what they say under tech specs here. Available in midnight. It's not black. It's midnight and white. There has been some interesting concern that the whatever rubber they're using for the base can mar furniture. So people are saying make sure you put something under it and don't set it directly on the furniture. Let's see, 4-inch woofer. Where's the? No, it doesn't say what processor it is. Now you do need a newer device in order to set it up and use it, but they go back many years, and of course it's recyclable and whatnot. Let's see. Has anyone gotten the new HomePod yet? The big one? Nope. All right. Let's see. What is the delivery time? So if we say we want a midnight one, March. So it looks like they're about a month out. And also the white one. Now the white one's a little more available than the black one. So if you're into music, you probably already have the old HomePod. Let's see. For Black History Month, Apple put out a new Apple Watch band and face, so you can purchase that. And now we're starting to see our Valentine's Day gifts, where you can put your Apple stamp on it. Let's see. Those are streaming. Let's see what Apple's Valentine's gifts say they are. No, it's basically their whole product line. Yeah, sure. Buy your wife an expensive computer. I bought my wife an expensive phone a couple years ago, and now her phone is so much better than mine. So that means I got to get her an even better one so I can take her hand-me-down. Okay, so that's the end of that. So let's go look at. I want to go back to the Apple's main page, and I want to go to the PR Newswire. Newsroom, there we are. So first quarter results came out. Basically, they earned a crap load of money. Let's bring up 6 colors and Jason Snell's wonderful color charts. If I can find it here. Apple calls. No, we want Apple's results. Let's see. Here we are. Nope, that's the report card. Sometimes, yeah, we're only at February 3rd, things come out so fast that when you go to try to find them again, there we are, later, it was a week ago, so it's 100 news stories behind. And so if you're really interested, you can watch the breakdown with Jason and Dan. So for first quarter of 2023, which ended in December, so Apple times it so Christmas is in the first quarter, they had $117 billion in revenue in 3 months. So that's 90 days. So they're They're making more than $1 billion a day in revenue. In profit, 30 billion for 90 days. So what is that? Half a billion a day? No, quarter billion a day. Some ridiculous amount of revenue. But surprisingly, profit was down 5% over last year. And some of that is due to the pandemic buying. Everyone bought their stuff previously, and so they didn't need to buy as many. And as usual, iPhones account for just over half of Apple's earnings. iPad and Mac are about the same, and services and wearables are the growing categories. So wearables is the watch and the headphones, and then services is things like Apple TV Plus and News Plus and things like that. So we can see as a percentage, Apple makes most of their money from the phone. So a lot of the tech pundits have talked about what's next. So eventually, everyone's going to have an iPhone, or everyone's going to not need a new iPhone, and so that could be why products were down a little bit. And so what's going to be next for Apple? Their next cash cow. Let's see. Mac revenue was down 30% for the quarter, so that was disappointing. I think Apple, when they did their fourth quarter results, they issued a warning that next quarter was going to be lower, and then a few weeks later they issued another warning that it's going to be even lower than we initially thought, because you can't mess with the investors and the SEC. iPad revenue is up, so it could be that iPads are cannibalizing Macs, which is interesting because they're based on the same chip now, just about, with the M1 and M2 iPads. iPad revenue up 30% over last year. 65 billion in iPhone. Somebody broke down once that all of Apple's products would be a separate Fortune 500 company if they wanted to be. Let's see, and here's the growth in services. You can see, how that curve is growing over the last 10 years or so. Services for those people that have Apple stock, that's good. Your stock is growing. Just have to weather the drops and keep it for the long term. Let's see. Now this is always an interesting chart. China grew quite a bit over the last couple of years, and is maybe leveling off a little bit. There was a lot of a surge in China nationalistic pride, buying Chinese-made phones in China, where the iPhone has always been seen as a status symbol, especially in Hong Kong and some of the more affluent areas of China. So we'll see how many they can buy too. And Apple pulls out China separately, so you can see that they're kind of on a downward trend now after huge growth a couple years ago.
Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the services category, it was Apple TV and what else?
Apple TV Plus, News Plus, Fitness Plus, iCloud, basically all of the pay services that aren't a physical device.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So basically, Apple had another pretty amazing quarter, but $117 billion is lower than they expected. It's sometimes interesting to think about what could happen if they keep growing as they do. They were the first $1 trillion company, the first $2 trillion company. Maybe they'll be the first $3 trillion company. Alrighty. For soccer fans, Apple has purchased the Major League Soccer rights for playing games, and they've made it worldwide. So many sports teams or sports leagues try to license their games separately in each country. In fact, Apple was rumored to be bidding on the NFL Sunday Ticket, which was rumored to be going for $3 billion. But the NFL wants to license Europe and Asia separately, and Apple wants the whole thing in one. So you'll be able to watch soccer games on Apple TV Plus. And they did say that some of the games you can buy an MLS season pass separately from the Apple TV Plus. So if you don't want to pay for the extra TV shows, then you can get just the soccer pass. And theoretically, that's going to be all of Major League Soccer in U.S. games and wherever they happen to play. Here's their schedule. NFL has been playing interesting games in other countries. So we got so there's New York teams and then New York City teams. Nobody's playing. Soccer's over, right? Because the World Cup just finished. So you probably don't want to buy a season pass now until next season. But that was big news for soccer fans. And if you can't wait for the Super Bowl, you can watch Rihanna's halftime performance now. February 9th, so that'll be tomorrow morning. You'll be able to listen to her song that she's going to perform. And they've encoded it with spatial audio. So if you have headphones that support spatial audio, you can listen to it that way.
Your audio is starting to break up pretty bad, Steve.
Is it? It looks okay at my end. Let me unplug and replug. Hang on a minute.
You're okay now.
Okay. I wonder if it was trying to play that song while I was talking. Don't want it to do that. So, all right. So Sunday the 12th is the Super Bowl. I'm so much into sports, I didn't know that. I knew it's coming up soon. When Buffalo lost their last game and got out of the running, that was sort of the end of football around here. And I lost my room. There we go. That's the one I want. Now, Apple released a new privacy commitment on one hand, and then they got sued on the other hand for leaking information. When you install an app on your phone, that app can send information back to the app's owners. And that was kind of a duh, but I wonder if I can find the news story. This company is trying to start a class action suit against Apple for not telling people that. Apple, let's see, iPhone app leaking data. One of the things that you'll see in the App Store is, seeing that goes back quite a ways. One of the things you see in the App Store when you buy an app, or when you're looking at an app, let me see if I can bring up a window. The app will tell you what things, let me switch over to that then, what things the app wants to take from you and from the your developer, and send to the developer. All right, so let me switch windows here to that window. App Store. So if I just click on an app, one of the things it says when you go to that app down near the bottom is privacy. and so it will show what data it collects and whether it's linked to you or not. So I just happened to pick one that the only thing it collects is diagnostic data, and it is not linked to you specifically. So let's try something pretty onerous, like say Facebook. So if we look at the Facebook app, oh, I'm in the Mac App Store, not the iOS App Store. So let's see what this says. Company don't provide details for your privacy. So as you're buying apps, or before you buy the apps, you may want to check this privacy issue to see. I'm going to make that bigger here. To see the privacy details, if that's something that you want to share with the company. But
Question.
Yep.
It seems to me like it's been doing that for some time now on the App Store. So what is the basis of this lawsuit complaining about?
The basis of the lawsuit is, I think, is baseless. They are
Okay.
They are saying that on a jailbroken iPhone, the developer gets information about the app that you're running. And that's sort of, well, yeah, it's the developer's own app. The developer can do whatever they want with their app. And they are required to disclose that in the App Store. And so this does not collect anything at all. They're required to disclose that to the App Store and to show you a window when you open the app to tell you what they're collecting and ask if it's okay to do that. And every time the app wants to access the camera or the microphone or location or something else about you, you'll get a message about that as well. And you can choose to let the app have it all the time, never, or just when you're running that app, which is usually what most people do. So one of the things that most apps can collect is whether you have purchased anything in the app. And so most of the stuff that the lawsuit is alleging is kind of like, duh, this app will know your purchases. You do in the app. Well, the app has to know what you've purchased, so it can give you whatever those purchases give you.
Also, to interrupt again, you said a jailbroken iPhone.
Yeah.
Am I correct that that's a device on which you can download apps from sources other than the App Store?
That is one of the main reasons to jailbreak an iPhone, is so you can sideload apps from other app stores. Most of the times, those apps from other app stores are criminal hacking apps that if you want to break into somebody's iPhone. So it's not unusual that if you remove the locks on your house, don't be surprised when someone walks in your front door.
Yeah, and so if you jailbreak an iPhone, how is anything that you download from another source Apple's fault?
It's not. But from what I remember on reading the story, it was basically, there we go, they should stop this. So how is Apple going to stop you from letting third-party apps on? Most jailbreaking is done with a bug. Somebody found a bug and is able to exploit the bug and get into a phone through unauthorized means. And when Apple finds that bug, they fix it until somebody finds the next bug and the next bug and the next bug.
It's only gonna get worse as countries and start saying that Apple and Google have to offer other app stores on their phones.
Yep.
Apple has no control over what they put on there.
Yeah. So there was couple years ago, when the big fight started between Epic and Apple over the Fortnite game, um, Epic wants to put their own app store so people can buy stuff without giving Apple a cut, and Fortnite loses some money. Uh, every store, even physical stores, take a cut. In fact, in the retail market, your retail markup is 100%. So if something sells for $100 at Walmart probably paid $50 for it, probably less. Um, and the when Fortnite released a version that so Fortnite got kicked out of the Apple App Store and the Google App Store for the same reason. But on Android, you can turn on side loading. You can basically turn off security, so you can side load an app, and within hours of Fortnite releasing a real update for side loading, there were dozens of fake Fortnite updates that people were getting tricked into installing, and so installing malware because they turned off all the security and then went to the wrong place to download the file because they get tricked into downloading the file. There is a serious spyware program called Pegasus, developed by an Israeli cyber arms company. They claim they only sell it to good guys, but there have been many documented attacks of human rights activists, um, um, journalists, all sorts of things, and there have been people that have been killed after their phone was attacked with Pegasus. And there was a big thing a couple of weeks ago, where was it the FBI? Um, FBI started using Pegasus to break into devices, and the hacker community is reporting that using Pegasus is about $1 million a use. The NCO group doesn't sell you Pegasus. You tell them who you want to attack, and they do. That way, they don't lose their software. And that's about reportedly about $1 million per use. And so, so the FBI paid this company, and there was a testimony before Congress about what's going on, and I think it was the FBI director basically said, "I don't know." No, how did you word it? We may have purchased it, but only for research. We're not actively attacking U.S. citizens. But if you happen to know there was one for this has been going on for a couple years too. If you happen to know a foreign national, you could accidentally get surveilled by the FBI because they're looking at a foreign national, even if they're not supposed to do U.S. citizens. So then the CIA gets involved, so they can go backwards the other way from outside the U.S.
With what you just said about NCO and customers paying them per use to attack specific targets, NCO also claims that they have no idea who their customers are attacking.
Yeah,
that's how they're as I've said before, they're totally fork-tongued. They claim that no bad guys are using their stuff on the one hand, and on the other hand, they say it's okay to use our stuff because we have no idea who you're using it on.
Yeah, so they keep changing their story on both sides. It was a really interesting article we talked about when it first came out about how it was discovered and the depths that it can reach into your phone. And they call it a zero click, where oftentimes it comes through a malicious text message because there's no security in text messaging. And so they are able to embed this program in a text message, and just your phone receiving the text message through the cellular system can open you to the vulnerability. Because there are vulnerabilities. What is it called? The S7 baseband. In the core of the cellular technology, maybe it's not S7. There are bugs that have not been fixed, and especially and they can't be fixed basically because they're in the hardware, so they can only be fixed in a new generation of phone. Let me see if I can do vulnerability. So every now and then, yeah, Checkpoint is one of the big security researchers on this. Every now and then they find another vulnerability in the baseband cell system. So that's before the OS loads. That's part of the cellular chip, and the only one way. I don't even think turning cellular service off does that, because the chip is still in your phone. So if somebody wants to target you, they're probably gonna. And it's the fallout from the collateral damage of someone you happen to know, someone that happens to know someone, and then suddenly you're connected. That can be rough. Anybody else have any newsy type things they want to talk about? Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 9 pictures on my screen, and the space for a 10th.
And I see a list of 14 users at this point on the side.
Yep. But not everyone has cameras on.
That would, yeah, right. But it will show them whether or not they have the camera on.
Yeah.
It just says this teeny weeny little thing. It's red. I can't tell what the heck it's supposed to be, but.
Well, the red means their mic is muted. Green is the mic is on. But next to that, under their name, it will say webcam if the webcam is on, or it will have nothing under their name if their cam is off.
Okay, so like Kim says nothing at this point.
Yeah.
Rick Harrison has nothing, and Vanessa has nothing. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Oh, now
I'm gonna have
somebody turned their. Oh, Rick turned his camera on, so now we have 10 people. So if I stop sharing. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 10. So I've got room for 12 pictures on my screen now, because I turned off the.
Yeah. That's interesting, because mine is filled with 6.
Yeah, mine too.
6.
I'm going to have a question for you when we get to Q&A, which sounds like what we're drifting into.
Yeah.
I attempt during these meetings. I follow the meeting on my MacBook, but I also try to use an iPad to check on the Facebook and YouTube feeds for things like, is the sound on?
Yeah.
And so I'm using this iPad, and I got into Facebook to today's thing, and that's all right. And then I opened the YouTube app on the iPad, and it says error loading, tap to retry. I'm not sure what I should tap, but the thing that's interesting about this is that this is exactly the iPad that I was using before the meeting on my exercise bike with YouTube. It was fine.
I was getting the same thing when I started YouTube, and I had to quit and relaunch.
I did that once. I closed the app, which I will do now, and then I'll open it again. And it made a monkey out of me. There you are. Yep, we're all set. Thank you.
Yeah, so now I'm trying to be sneaky here. On my iPad, I've got YouTube video in one panel and Facebook video in the other panel. No, it's not going to let me do both. I figured that would be too much for it. All right, so let me get back to the current meeting. Play. Alrighty, anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Steve. Have you discussed Chat GPT and Microsoft at all, and the AI wars that are getting started?
We've talked a little bit on sound bites. I don't know if we've said much here. Yeah, we did do one of the art ones last month, and the weird things that are happening. Let me get that back to sound bites. Nick did put together a page. Let me see if I can find it, on all the different AI things that are loading. So if I go into future tools, there we are. So here are a bunch of the AI tools that are already available. 669 of them. So you can if we back up a step, there's an argument that they aren't really artificial intelligence. So a lot of companies are just calling them machine learning, because the machine can make faster connections with immense amounts of data than a person can. And so you might remember Eliza. I mean, there's probably a bunch of Elizas in the early days. Where it basically mimicked a there we go, chat with historical figures, people AI. It mimicked a therapist, sort of, where you ask questions and it said, well, how does that make you feel? And for a while that was kind of the definition for a Turing test, if a machine was actually intelligent or not, is if it could pass the Turing test, which is someone, without knowing if it was a person or a computer, couldn't tell if it was a person or a computer. So who do we want to chat with? Martin Luther King. It's Martin Luther King birthday is coming up.
No, that was January.
That was January.
This is Black History Month.
Do you still have a dream? That's probably a bad question. Nope. No, I can't do anything without logging in. I'm not going to do that. But it's interesting that so many machine learning AI type things are available to the public. So Chat GPT is one of the big ones that is getting all the news now. Chat GPT. And so it interacts in a conversational way, admits mistakes, answers follow-ups. So we can try. I don't want to log in. No, it's at capacity, so we can't use it anyway. It's one of the more popular ones, so it gets full fast.
Are there a lot of term papers due pretty soon?
Yeah. Well, and there have long time tools have been available for teachers, where they can upload the a paper a student submits to a bunch of different services to check for plagiarism, and now they're being trained with these same machine learning models, so that they can help against that as well. Although I did read an interesting story once where someone had written it writes stories and had published them on their blog, and then when they submitted a story to their English class, it got flagged as plagiarism because it was on a weblog, and the school wouldn't acknowledge that it was that person's weblog, and of course it's going to be the same thing because they wrote it. So I guess you got to submit it to the school first before you submit it to your weblog. But it's AI and chat. There was a couple of art ones. What was it? Dolly, Open Dolly, where you could give it a no, that's not it.
You could give it a text description.
Yeah.
It'll make up the artwork for you.
And,
or you can give it a sample of what you're looking for. And
one of the ways that they've done that is by training it. Oh, it's DALL-E from OpenAI. One of the ways they've done that is by training it with thousands and probably millions of pictures. And that was scraped from public sources, but a lot of those pictures shouldn't have been in the public. So there's been a lot of issues with copyright violations. And so when you ask it to paint a picture in the style of a certain artist, it basically copies that artist and then creates its own copyright violation. But there was a big controversy a while ago where someone submitted a computer-generated artwork to a contest for computer art. And the intent of the contest was for pictures that an artist used or created with a computer. But it never actually specified that. It said computer-generated art. So there was a controversy when someone put in art generated by a computer and not with a computer and the person doing the controls. So it's another thing we're just going to have to keep in the back of our minds, that you can't trust pictures anymore because you never know what's going to be.
In terms of accuracy of these AIs, I've discovered that they're prone to pretty big errors, and it reminds me of the dictation software.
Yeah.
Dictation software is somewhere between, at worst, it's 15% errors, and at best, maybe 5%, but averaging around 10% errors. Well, that means, 1 out of every 10 words is going to be spelled wrong or will be wrong.
Yep.
So it makes its use quite limited. And I think we're going to see the same thing on the AI side, that the number of errors that will be occurring may make the tools not really worth it.
Yep. And there's already websites dedicated to crazy things that the AIs have generated inadvertently. Let's see if we can find one. Let's go to this one. Oh, yeah, Twitter feed. Spectacular fails. Yeah, giraffe with 2 heads instead of 4 legs. So how in the world, person with a chicken head, I suppose if you ask for that, that's what it gives you. Too many fingers. Just creepy, So another way we can't trust our own senses because you don't know the origin of it. All right, any other questions?
Thank you, Steve.
Yep. Make this window bigger. Is that gonna...
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
I'm getting hooked up at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for green light. Is there anything that I have to know? Getting my router hooked up to it.
What wireless router do you have?
I got the Eero.
Okay, you're probably
mesh.
set. What speed did you go for? So 500.
I went for the 500.
Yeah, 500 is their slow service for only 50 bucks a month. But if you really want, you can do 5 gig service. The biggest issue is here we go, router recommendations. I don't quite agree with all their recommendations, but you want to have a new enough router, probably at least Wi-Fi 5, if not Wi-Fi 6. And if your router doesn't say what it is in like that, then it's probably too old. The very early Wi-Fi routers were B, and then they were G, then they were N, and then they were AC, and so then they renamed AC to be Wi-Fi 5 and AX as Wi-Fi 6, and they have the capability of handling that type of throughput.
Well, this is a 6, and I just got it a week ago from you. So.
Yep. Oh, I didn't know you came in. They keep me tied up in the back.
Yeah. So basically, they hooked us in, and I got to go to their website and put in the password and router name and all that stuff. And I should be good to go then.
I didn't need to do any of that. I just plugged my router in. I unplugged my Time Warner modem and plugged in the Greenlight fiber box, and it just worked.
Yeah.
Oh, have you set up the Eero yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so yeah, you'll have to do that.
I didn't figure I could do that until they got here to plug it in.
Well, you could replace your existing router with your existing ISP. But you might as well do the whole change at once. Yeah.
Yeah, because I got the Spectrum box. I didn't know how to plug it into that, so rather than mess around with it, I said I'd wait till they get here, then plug it in then. And
yeah, they should configure it for you.
They may not if it's not on their supported list.
But basically, I just go through that website and follow instructions.
It's with Eero. It's an app. You download the Eero app on your phone, and it walks you through step by step how to set it up.
Okay.
I have a question about actually about the Frontier fiber they're advertising and pushing. Has anybody used that or know anything about it? The reason is that I've had my Spectrum service for close to 2 years, and I expect when I hit the 2-year mark, they will jack the price up, and I may get on the phone and argue with them and see if I can talk them down, but it might be helpful if I could threaten them with something else. And Greenlight is not in my neighborhood yet. I don't think they're getting here, but they're not here yet.
Yeah,
and I know that the old Frontier, was it direct subscribe DSL was terrible, terribly. Frontier's ads are saying, well, we've been putting fiber in all over the place, and so help me, I have not seen a Frontier truck anywhere putting any fiber in anything. So I don't know how that works.
And all of their ads are saying fiber is finally here, and the people that have had Greenlight for 10 years or whatever it is are strange. So on Greenlight's website, they have an availability button where you can put in your address, and it will tell you if it's available yet. Same thing on Frontier. So let's see. So
my question is Frontier piggybacking on somebody else's already installed fiber or what?
I don't know. That would be interesting. I doubt it.
They're putting in their own fiber in our area.
I would think they would put in their own fiber.
They dug up in our backyard.
What was always interesting about cellular towers is that I had read that there was a law or something that cell companies couldn't use the same tower. So every company had to put up their own towers instead of one tower that everyone can share. And so by each company putting up their own tower, the growth of cell towers was really, really slow. So if that was kind of the limiting factor for high-speed internet in any area, is you got to put new wires in. So
was that cell tower thing a federal regulation?
It may have been something. Something about competition, but I think I would have thought, say, if Verizon put up a tower, they would have to let the other companies use it. But maybe it was because they were afraid that companies wouldn't put up their own towers because they would just leech off of somebody else's. I could see that happening too. So Frontier says they'll give me internet for $50, but it's not saying what speed. Oh, they include an Eero router. $50 a month, and I have to call to order it. But yeah, so it will have to have Frontier Fiber will have been needed to be run to your house. There was a lot of what they call dark fiber in the city, like in the inner loop. There were fiber lines run for businesses that were never used, and maybe with the inner loop getting dug up and replaced, that they're redoing some of that fiber, reallocating it other places.
But I thought Frontier was like ahead of the game originally. They had put in like the main trunk lines of fiber, and then they just kind of sat there and didn't do anything at all with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Rochester Tel was bought up by Global Crossing. It was, I think.
Yeah.
And then they dumped the landline phone part and kept the fiber. And then Global Crossing was crooked or something, and ended up getting it. So it ended up sold to somebody else, and now God knows who it is. But originally, yeah, they were the leaders in the fiber around here.
Yeah, maybe they became Charter One.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting. There we go, Frontier. Stop the Cap, which we've talked about in the past, that he keeps track of broadband issues. There's a lot of complaints about Frontier all over the country on horrible customer service, buying companies and ripping out wires and not upgrading like they were supposed to. Yeah, so Fiber said customers don't want high-speed internet, so you shouldn't make us install. So they're doing, Frontier DSL is 3 or 4 megabit, and they're trying to compete with Spectrum, which is 300 megabit, and Greenlight is 500 megabit. Yeah, they admitted that DSL isn't high speed. So the government, is it broadband.gov? The government put out a survey and issued requirements, or not requirements, specifications for what is considered broadband. And DSL doesn't count. There, broadband map. So one of the annoyances is you can see how slow broadband in your area might be versus other areas.
Get more with super
duper. And for a long time it was anything faster than a 56K modem was considered broadband, but not anymore.
I saw one of the flyers for the Frontier, and there's you read all the fine print. There's a lot of tie-in you had, with other things, and it looks like a lot of you had to be with them for a year, and if you got less, then you had to pay so much. So there's a lot of red tape in the things that you don't want to get involved with.
Which is unfortunate because their advertisement, 2-year price guarantee with no commitment. That's always been Spectrum's a big advantage is their month to month. There we go. So let's see if we can find what the asterisk stands for down here at the bottom. Credit qualification required, early termination fee. If you want to include television, that's extra, of course. But yeah, so you always got to ask what your bottom line price is going to be, and that was one of the biggest things that Greenlight advertised, is their service is $50 a month. Period. That's it.
Yeah, because I know it took them quite a while to run the conduit for their fiber, so I can't see them coming into my neighborhood. They wouldn't run another conduit when Greenlight's already got everybody.
Well,
Greenlight took 10 years to get out to where we were. I thought that was awfully slow, but I finally have it and I'm very happy with it. And I'm only doing the 500 megabit, and that's fine.
Yeah. So we can.
But Steve, I'll just jump in a moment just to check on when you're going to want me to go through my stuff, just so I manage my end of stuff here.
All right. Yeah, pretty quick. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I do have one thing to bring up.
Okay.
And that is, I have a Mac Mini that I had upstairs, and I was ordered to move it. And so I moved it down to where my iMac is, and I have a 3 monitor setup. I have the iMac and 2 28-inch monitors. So I hooked up the Mac Mini to one of the 28-inch monitors. And today I noticed, so I have 2 computers running at the same time, one on one monitor and my iMac in another monitor. And I noticed today, as I'm scrolling, I took my iMac pointer and it went all the way over to my Mac Mini screen.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm using one mouse for 2 computers, one keyboard for 2 computers. I mean, it's great because I don't have to use two mices,
yeah.
I guess, and 2 keyboards. So how is that happening, and how did I do it?
There was a feature added a couple of systems ago called CIDER, which allows you to use your iPad as a second monitor to your computer. Both need to be logged into the same Apple ID. We've talked about apps in the past that did this, but now Apple is actually building it into the OS. And they have expanded that recently to, I'm pretty sure just on Ventura now, with a new system called Universal Control. So any number of Macs and iPads can share monitors and share your keyboard and mice between them. So, long-time people might remember the KVM, the keyboard, video, and mouse switches.
Yep.
Where if you wanted to have multiple computers use a single display, it was you had to have a pretty big switch. I remember we had one guy that had 2 computers and 2 monitors, and he wanted a switch that would let him do either monitor or both monitors on either computer. And it was an $800 switch to do that. And now it's pretty well built into Ventura, iOS 16 and Ventura. So by dragging your mouse to the edge of the screen, it and then dragging past the edge of the screen, it assumes you want to move your cursor onto the next screen. So one of the things that's interesting is when you've had multiple screens, you've always needed to go into the display settings to tell it the physical positioning of left and right, so it knows which side of the screen to move your mouse across.
Right.
It doesn't do that anymore, and we're trying to figure out how it knows what side of the screen it's on, and partly it's because you're pushing the cursor off the left side of the screen, so it's assuming the monitor you want is on the left.
I did have to go into the displays
Yep.
and change the monitor setup. So the monitor, when my Mac Mini is on the left, I had to move it from the right to the left so that it would act like a continuous thing, or otherwise
you can tell it specifically.
Yeah.
And so in system preferences, there's a button that says allow your under universal control settings to allow your pointer and keyboard to move between nearby devices. So that's now part of Ventura and iOS 16.
What setting is that on?
Universal control.
Okay.
Actually, it actually started in Monterey and 15.
Huh.
Are you on the club computer? Do you have Ventura on that now?
Yes.
Can you open perhaps this as an example of what the system settings looks like now? Because that's what's scaring me away from going to Ventura.
Yeah, we can do that. So a huge shock to people that switch.
Yeah, I'm with you, Charlie. I don't like it yet.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get into it and not be able to get out of it, and because I do okay with system preferences in Monterey or whatever I'm on, but I didn't like the idea of getting more confused than I naturally am.
So a lot of people were shocked by this change. They have renamed system preferences into system settings. Although longtime users might remember control panels. And so system settings now in Ventura looks very similar to system settings on the iPhone, where on the left-hand side you have all your panes or panels, and on the right-hand side you have the things you can control about it. One of the big concerns is there's no organization sort of to the list. They're not alphabetical. They aren't really grouped together in concept. Maybe so the first part are maybe radios, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, networking, VPN, but things have been hidden. So like Time Machine used to be a top level system preference. Now it's under general. So most of the time I find myself clicking on the search and now universal control. I want to find where it is. It's under displays. So we can go to that. And so this is where you can allow your pointer to be shared across your devices. When you push across an edge, that's when it will go to the next machine. And when you have multiple monitors connected, this is where you would arrange them. So where is left and where is right. But where's the display setting? Who knows? All right, there it is at the top level. So you can get back to it. But sometimes, especially Time Machine, you can dig down, and you might be 3 or 4 pages down on something that used to be on the top page of the system preferences initially. So it takes a little getting used to, but it is similar to where the iPad works. And for a lot of people, you don't go into settings very often because once you get your computer set the way you like it, you may not change it that much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Charlie, did you want to make a brief announcement about the elections coming up for CIDER?
Why, yes, Rick, I would like to do that. Rick and I are the nominating committee for the upcoming elections, and we haven't officially stated a slate yet. at this time, it looks like it's pretty much going to be as is now, except that Doug will not be a board member next year. And at some point, we're supposed to send out a notification of who is on the ballot, so to speak. Like I say, it's pretty much going to be the same, but at next week's board meeting, we can finalize that, and I would expect that Steve can send that out with the email for the next general meeting, if that's enough time for everybody. If anybody wants to be on the board or one of the officers in any way, why don't you email a board member through the little tab on the CIDER homepage? That sound all right, Rick? And
yeah, that sounds good.
Or you can crash the board meeting next week. There's a link on the CIDER homepage. And then at the business meeting itself, we will take nominations from the floor, so to speak, or from the screen.
So one of the easiest things to do is start as just a member of the board, where you don't have to do much other than listen and vote on things. And then the officers, I think everyone was going to stay in the officer position, weren't they? We asked
everybody last week. Unless somebody wants to be president, in which case Shirley has indicated that she will graciously yield to their decision. But yeah, about the same.
And since we've been virtual for what, 3 years, going on 3 years now, you don't even have to come to meetings anymore.
The thing is that anybody can attend a board meeting. They don't have to be on the board. If you do one or more times and decide that it's so darn much fun, you can't possibly pass it up. And we do have some fun at the board meetings. We get a little loose and crazy. We're not always quite as well behaved as we are on the general meeting, which is fun. But you can do that you don't have to join the board. And you don't have to, if you're thinking about whether you might want to be on the board, you do not have to make your mind up by next month's meeting, because anytime during the year you can just let the board know you'd like to join, and we look around at each other and say, yes, you're fine, and you're on.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Charlie.
All right, let's take about a 10-minute break. And we'll meet back about 8:30, and Lyle will show off your tax software. Is an hour enough? We'll get out by 9:30, Lyle? Well, you're muted, but you can drag it out as long as you want. Since we don't.
Yeah, it won't take me an hour to get through what I've got, for sure.
All right, so we'll meet all back at about 8:30.
Sounds good.
Let's see.
Carol, I wanted to tell you I went and had that tea luncheon today, which was very nice. She had a lot of tea. We got to try 4 different kinds. And she also runs a honey class at the Penfield Rec Center, she said, where she teaches honey. So that sounded interesting too. So the people who are doing the Sophie thing in Fairport went and thought they might have her come and do honey at some point. So it was pretty good. You're muted, Carol.
Yep, I'll have to take a look at the Penfield Rec thing. That sounds interesting.
Yes, it does. I don't know how often she teaches it, but it sounded from the way she talked that it was fairly regularly and everything. But she gave a nice little talk about how she got into tea, where she was an engineer for many years and just retired and did this all on the side. And then when she retired last year, she went to it full time and really enjoys what she's doing. So she has 35 different blends. And
did you buy some?
Yeah, I had to buy a couple.
Okay, good.
The one I liked the most was the elderberry. That was the first one. And I thought that had the best flavor. And then I bought one with turmeric in it. That's like a Mayan blend. That sounded very good. And then a raspberry one that smelled really good with lemon and different stuff.
Sounds good.
some of the teas had just a few flavors in them, and other teas had a lot of different ingredients. So she basically just mixes and matches whatever she feels tastes good. And she said she had a tea that tastes like coffee. It was made with chicory. Though she didn't have any with her. She should have brought that for all the coffee drinkers.
Now, I have one not from her that's, in fact, it's a Wegmans one. It's a Wegmans Just Tea that's chocolate mint.
Oh, she did
tea.
have a mint
really
one
good.
there too.
Yeah.
And she had an evening like you would do it to calm down at night, like a chamomile kind of blend that she had in there. But it was interesting because they're all loose teas, and she said she preferred the loose teas over any manufactured one. But the good thing was, because I have a lot of teas and I haven't used them for a long time, and she said as long as they're sealed, she said tea can last a long time because it's dry.
If they're in a foil thing, they last better. If they're just like in paper. They don't. Yeah, they don't last quite as well. They just lose a lot of flavor.
Right, but she said they're still drinkable depending on how good they are. But I thought, gee, I better get myself into that tea in the morning then.
Yeah, sounds
kind of
good.
thing. So I've got my teapot and my infuser, and
All right.
I have
Good.
no excuse.
Good.
Other than think tea instead of coffee, right?
Yeah, it's just a habit. All right, I got to take a break now. So
yep, go ahead. Go ahead. I just thought I'd let you know.
Back. Yeah, good.
Did you serve on the Iowa, Ken, or you're just wearing the shirt? Oh, you're muted.
Back in 2012, I went there to visit my brother. We went to the USS Iowa. We went to the Queen Mary.
Wow.
Pretty interesting.
Where was that, Ken?
What's that?
Where?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Oh, okay.
California.
Yeah, that one.
USA. Earth. Planet Earth.
I've never heard of this Los Angeles. What is it?
Los Angeles. It's a place where a lot of people.
Ah! Yes, that is true. Oh. It's cold out. I haven't left my apartment since December. Until tomorrow.
Doug's gonna make us all dizzy with that fan.
Press the little triangle so you can go to the other page and we'll see it.
Hey, Charlie, can you hear me?
Well, Charlie didn't react, but I can hear you, Ken.
Okay.
Oh,
Can
I'm
you hear
sorry,
me?
Ken. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes? Uh-oh. You can hear me now?
Yep.
Huh. Okay.
Auditioning for a commercial or what?
Yes, I'm trying to just check out my headphones and how I can...
Charlie, we can hear you eating.
How to mute my headphones here.
Anybody else who isn't muted should be, except for Lyle for the presentation.
One moment, please. Can you hear me eating when I just put the nuts in my mouth and chew with it open, or once I close my mouth, use chewing?
Even when you have your mouth closed.
Plenty of extraneous noises coming through.
Well, I'm getting some feedback from you guys here, and thank you very much for that.
We love you, man.
What, feedback.
It's amazing how sensitive the mics are when you don't want them to be.
No, that's echo.
I haven't taken feedback class. What? Hi.
So can I assume that people don't want feedback on their presentations? Is that it?
That would be one way to interpret it.
Right.
No squelching. All right, Lyle, I have given you presenter status, so you should be able to bring your presentation up and share it.
And we'll see if I learned anything from.
Yeah.
So you should be seeing this.
Yep, I am.
Yep.
So as obviously 2020 was when everything went into crapper. We had a heck of a time. 21 said it couldn't get any worse. Well, we're hoping this year to get back to normal. At all of our sites at this point, masks are optional. We had sort of privacy screens to try to block airflow. Those are gone. So we're back to what I would call normal tax preparation at this point. So this is some of the boilerplate you see, and we'll zip through it. But just a reminder for anyone who may be new on the call that hasn't seen this before: AAP Foundation Tax Aid we are the nation's largest free income tax preparation service, and we continue to be amazed at how much some people pay. $150, $250, $300 to have fairly simple returns prepared. So, needless to say, we have an awful lot of people who love us and appreciate the service that we offer. We've served an awful lot of people since this was started back in '68. What many don't know is this is funded by several different areas. AARP Foundation is a nonprofit sort of charitable arm of AARP. They're one of the primary funders. The IRS is also a major funder. And then finally, they do get annual grants from other organizations, those that may be specifically trying to support various demographics of the population. And so we do capture some demographic information, some of that by virtue of having the taxes done, some of that only if it's permission is given by the person whose return that we're preparing. We're in all 50 states. We prepare them electronically online now. So the beauty of that is that we don't have that confidential data sitting on what are now Chromebooks that we use for everything. All our preparation is online. It's up in the cloud. The returns are stored up there. So while certainly we never want equipment stolen, it's not quite as big a security concern as it used to be if a Chromebook disappears, because it's all online and all the security is confirmed up there. Here in NY4, basically the country is divided into what are considered split states based on in some cases geographic and other cases population. And so there are 70 split states in the United States. New York being one of the larger states, we actually have 4 split states. The region that I work in, we're from Syracuse to Buffalo and from the lake down to the Pennsylvania border. Pandemic has hit us like a whole bunch of other organizations. So we're down to about 750 volunteers. We have 43 licenses for the tax software that serve 50 sites. Becomes pretty obvious there that at times, as an example, I manage 2 sites. I manage Chilai and Riga. Riga we call an ad hoc to the main site of Chilai. So one license serves both of those. And that has to do generally with how many returns we prepare at each site. A lower site may not require its own license and we can piggyback on another one. This gives you a sense of the hardware we use. We use 388 Chromebooks. Obviously, when you look at volunteers versus Chromebooks, you say, wait a minute, how does that work? Well, there are sites that are open multiple days, so they may have the same Chromebook used by 2 or even 3 different people, depending on schedules. Well, this likes to keep trying to go forward and back on me here. A new requirement last year was every site is supposed to have a shredder. I guess they didn't trust us if there were accidental printouts or other confidential information to get that home and shred it. So we're supposed to have a shredder on site for any of those documents. We still have a bunch of scanners around from last year and the year before when, because of COVID, we were doing almost everything remotely. In spite of the COVID challenges last year, we prepared over 15,000 returns in NY4. So, tax law changes, good, bad, who's to say? We still have a number of available models for how we approach clients and how we prepare the taxes. We certainly have enough changes and challenges. There are going to be some taxpayers who are rather unhappy this year because some of their freebies are going away. Some of their high dollar returns are going away. We sidestepped at least one bullet, and I'll touch on that one as well as near the end, if you have an interest in us helping you out, how you would go about finding a site. And likewise, I'm sure if you talk to myself or Ken, we'll be glad to help you. And
fudge. I hit the wrong button.
we can do. This really got set up last year in a way that made it much more user-friendly, in that we can open a return for the client. We then send that client a link. With that link, client can scan their tax documents, upload those, and that upload comes directly into our tax software. We can now essentially open that as a PDF document and use that to go through, prepare the return. Interviews and questions get handled via Google Meet. And same thing goes with ending up with getting the right signatures on forms, et cetera. So all of this can be done in a contact-free manner. Not used a lot, but it is used some. I do a few returns for friends and family, for some folks from church. And one example of this is son of one of the older women, very computer savvy. I send him a link. He scans his mom's documents, uploads them up. We do it, and saves a lot of time on everybody's part, and we don't have to worry about matching up the schedules. This has been available for the past couple of years, and it's still out there. I think I know of 1 or 2 sites within my floor still using it. We called it the 2-visit scan model. It limited the face-to-face time. Client comes in with their paperwork. We do about a 20-minute interview where we sort through the documents, try to make sure we have everything, and ask the questions that you'd like to ask if they were sitting across from you. One of the excellent examples is, so what school district are you in? That's not always obvious from the address, and that's something required when you're doing the New York State return. We then scan that data into the system. Client goes home. They hold all their documents. We never hold on to any of their documents without them present. The returns get prepared by volunteers working from home. Client comes back the next week. We print out the return, review it with them. They sign the necessary documents and so on. Drop-off models. We did this last year as well. Maybe same day or could be 2 different days. Again, a similar thing of we do an interview up front for the information we're going to need. In this case, we keep their documents. They sign a form giving us permission. The return gets prepared either on site or at home with a lot of security protocols in place, and then they return later to pick that up. So those models are available. Where we are now is back to what we would call the traditional model. And I say with a twist, which I'll touch, but basically the twist is we learned during COVID that we have a form that originally started, like a 3 or 4 page, and now it's up to an 8-page document. And clients would piss and moan and gripe and just complain, why do I have to fill this out? Didn't I filled one out last year? And of course, people's tax situations change. Sometimes filling this out, found out that, oh, this changed, and they'd forgotten all about it. So we actually have them now pick up these packets ahead of time. That gives them a chance. They're not rushing. They take this home, they can fill this out. We include a sheet in there trying to help remind them, here are the documents you need to have, and check this, make sure you have this. Oh, by the way, this has occurred. It helps a lot in terms of having all the information we need when we go to prepare the return. And it also minimizes the delays of people who are coming in who aren't prepared. They pick those packets ahead of time. When they come in now, they're ready. We prepare the taxes face-to-face. One of the strengths of this program has always been any tax return always gets 2 sets of eyes. One of our preparers prepares the tax return, and then a different person will do the quality review on that, so we get that second set of eyes. It helps pick up errors that might be slipping through. Sometimes it's a typo. One of the things that you always want to make sure you have right is the bank account number. Obviously, that goes into la land. Nobody's getting it back. One of the errors that's easy to make for those who have accounts with Eastman Savings and Loan, with ESNL, they put the account number. It looks like you've got the account number, and then there's a space, and there's 2 more digits. This is the kind of thing that occasionally, once or twice a year, will get missed, and QR picks that up. I'm unaware of any that ever gotten past this. Again, that second set of eyes is very important. When the returns are finished, a copy is printed for the client. We review it. and that gets e-filed within 48 hours. So what are the changes? Well, in 2021, basically for child independent care, the taxpayers were getting up to $3,600 per dependent for this. Earlier, it had been $2,000. In 2022, it reverts to $2,000. So imagine the impact on the tax return for someone that has 3 or 4 children at $1,600 per dependent. They're coming in this year maybe thinking that it's going to turn out the same as last year, and they're not going to be a real happy camper. Nobody likes free gifts being taken away. The good news is most of our clientele are older. That's really our focus, of the older and those who are really have very little to work with. So we see very few of returns with the child independent care. We do occasionally have one come through, so we've had to be trained on it and be ready to address it. Here are some further changes, things that were passed. Many may be aware that the RMD, the minimum, essentially when you have to take your required distribution, minimum required distribution is now at 73. You may remember it for ages, for all the time, it was the year in which you turned 70 and a half. Then it became the year in which you turned 72. Now it is those who turn 73 after December 31st of 22. And it'll be 75 by the year 2033. So they're raising that age a bit. The penalty for failing to take an RMD, I mean, it's still pretty stiff. And generally speaking, especially the first time this mistake is made, the penalty is forgiven. But it used to be, if you didn't take that required distribution when you were supposed to, they would hit you with a 50% penalty of the amount you were supposed to have withdrawn. Pretty hefty. That's been lowered now to 25%. Didn't bother publishing the numbers here. Most people at this point use software, so this is built into the software. But to be aware, the caps, meaning the maximum that you can put into 401ks, IRAs, and HSAs, is rising. Those are generally indexed based on the inflation rates. And these are great tools. It's basically HSA, the health savings account. This differs from some of the older health accounts that we could use in that this is not a use it or lose it. Money you put into here, once it's above a certain threshold, depending on the companies that you're dealing with, you can actually direct some of that money into investment accounts. The money goes in terms of it reduces your taxable income when you put it in there. It gains, any of the earnings are also tax-free, as long as then when you pull it out and use it, you use it for essentially health concerns and health expenses. As an example here, I'm 5 years into Medicare at this point, and I'm just finishing our HSA. So like I said, that is not a use it or lose it. Once you get onto Medicare, you can actually also use HSA to pay for Medicare. So all those things can help. IRAs, 401ks, all those probably speak for themselves. Credits for electric vehicles have been improved in terms of the things that you can, or how much you can get for those. One of the big things is, it used to be that the first X number, and I don't remember what it was, but the first number, X number of electronic vehicles that a particular manufacturer made, then you couldn't get the credit anymore for buying more of those. They were trying to get more manufacturers, and if that sales threshold is gone, but there are some fine print, as you would expect, involved with these. As an example, batteries in these, the component rule must be met, where 40% of critical materials must be extracted and processed in the U.S. Did not do the research to determine how many electric cars this takes out of qualifying for the credit. But if you're thinking of using this credit, make sure that you're reading the fine print and understand whether the car you're looking at is going to qualify for this particular credit. Final assembly must be in the U.S. Obviously, that's an easier one to meet. 30% credit for solar panels has now been extended through 32. But caution, not refundable. You're thinking, what does that mean? Well, this is similar to, we see a lot of people come through who have had a company come in many cases, maybe they went from a regular furnace to a high efficiency furnace. They had a company come in and install insulation. They did air sealing. They paid for energy improvements in the home. Those energy improvements then will generate a tax credit, but it's called non-refundable because you only get to take advantage of the credit if you owe taxes. So if you are in a situation of being a lower income individual, of maybe now you're into retirement, you're getting Social Security, some of your pensions are getting excluded, especially in New York State. But if you're into a lower income bracket now and you pay very little taxes, this may be generating a lot more credits and you think you're going to get a benefit that never shows up. Again, that's only if you owe taxes are you going to get that benefit. I say 1099K scare. This may apply to some folks that are here in the meeting this evening. There's, to start out with, officially here, there's no change in the actual taxability of income. The point is, if you have income, you're supposed to declare it. It's supposed to flow through the tax and you pay taxes on it. The law that was passed starting this year was going to require companies like any online company that allows you to sell goods through there. If you sold more than, I think I have it on the next slide. Yeah. If your transactions exceeded $200 for the year, they were going to be required to send you that 1099K. Obviously, once you start to get forms, now there's no question about whether it's going to be the dark economy or has the light shining on it. All income, so this is related to part-time work, side jobs, or the sale of goods. Again, all that income is taxable. But in many cases, maybe side jobs just done as cash, sale of goods in particular through those online outlets, those end up not really showing up anywhere. That's part of what this new law is designed to start picking up on. Taxpayers must report all of it unless it's excluded. And it doesn't matter if they receive cash or checks. Form 1099K, Form 1099 NEC, and other income information documents track that. By the way, NEC is for a non-employee compensation. The law was going to mean that these were going to have a lot more documents sent out and a lot harder to bypass what is legally, should be legally reported. There were a lot of vendors who were not ready to issue this. It would look like this was really going to turn into a mess. So they did back off and provide another year of forgiveness. You could say forgiveness on this. So they're back to the old requirement. 1099K only gets issued if the transactions exceed 20,000.
Yeah, Lyle.
Yes.
Some of the payment companies like Square and Stripe and PayPal already started doing this a couple years ago. And I just got a notice from Square that we use for CIDER memberships. We didn't meet the threshold, so they're not issuing us a 1099K this year. So if you're using the payment services company to collect credit cards for your side gigs, that all may have already been reported.
Correct. That's correct. And so, some, as you just said, Steve, some may indeed, I mean, they were already going down this path before officially the IRS said, well, you'll have another year before you need to go to the lower limit. So some may already be getting them. If you get a 1099K, it better be on the tax return because computers are really good at matching A to B. And so that will get picked up. And again, this doesn't change the taxability of the income. It just changes how likely the IRS is to find it. And all these things are under that. Oh, I've got a spinning ball. So delayed till 2023. And a big part of this is not only were they not quite ready, but a big part of it is the payers may not always identify the transactions correctly. Just because you sold it through PayPal doesn't mean that that all ends up being taxable, because if you're selling personal items and you sold them below what you paid for them, well, then it's not going to be income, but it's going to show up as a 1099-K. It's going to have to be entered into your tax return, and then you're going to have to back out the stuff that was personal. So obviously it starts adding a level of complexity, something that Ken and I will enjoy next year, but luckily we sidestepped it this year. And again, gains end up, if you sold a personal item above what you bought it for, and there are a number of people who will buy stuff out there on eBay and other places. They buy it at a real good deal, and then they resell it at a higher price. That now starts to turn into a business. In some cases, depending on how long they hold it, they may actually have capital gain. For us, when they start getting into this stuff, it's what we call OOS, or out of scope. But be aware that if that one of your side gigs is doing that, that is income that should be reported and run through the tax return. You get a breather on more that documentation showing up. This continues to be one of my favorites. New York property tax credit. It was new last year, continuing this year. I'm not sure how much life it's going to have. Basically, if you're paying property taxes, you're in a home, you must first of all qualify for the STAR credit. If you don't, end of discussion. If income and property taxes fall within a certain range, you can receive anywhere from $250 to $350 back. And in this case, it is refundable. So per the earlier comments, in this case, since it's refundable, you may not owe any state taxes, but if you fall within this window, you can get up to $350 back that you never paid in. Now, the interesting thing is, somebody laid awake at night in Albany to think this one up, because if you go through this and, it calculates out that you would get a refund, a credit of $249, you get zero. I actually saw 2 of these last year. Okay, somebody have a question? Guess not. So I actually saw 2 of those. So at any rate, that's the way the law is set up. And then it's capped at $350. A rough formula, basically when a taxpayer comes through, before I pull up the additional form and enter a whole bunch of numbers just to find out I wasted my time. Basically, if you take the property taxes that were paid and subtract from that 6% of the adjusted gross, that number needs to be really greater than 1,800 to bother looking at it. So as a rough order of magnitude, take 6% of your adjusted gross, subtract that from the property taxes you actually paid, and if the number is above 1,800, you may make out getting some money back. If it doesn't, you can move on. Now, some are going to be disappointed, and I've already this year, I think I've already seen 2 of these. Again, if you own your own home, all of a sudden in the June timeframe, you should have seen a check show up. That check could range from a few $100s to over $1,000, and it was a property tax rebate. I guess somebody in Albany thought they had too much money there. They didn't know what to do with it. So therefore, they looked and said, oh, these poor people paying high property taxes in New York State deserve a break. So they sent us some money back. Point is, that reduced the property taxes paid. So when we go into this calculation, that means property taxes paid, we're going to reduce by that check that was received. And in some cases, someone who received this property tax credit last year will not this year, because this lowered their property taxes. Now, at the end of the day, they came out ahead because the check they got may have been for $1,000, and maybe they lost $300 on the credit, but they'll still be disappointed. And this is, when you go into your tax software, or at the very least, when you print out the form, this is what it will look like. in terms of did you live in your home for the full year? How many taxes were paid? Did you get any checks back that would have lowered the amount of actual property taxes that you paid? And then it does the math, walks down through taking 6% of your gross and ends up deciding of did you win the jackpot or not? Now, as I said, you need to make sure you're working with accurate property taxes. If you receive a star reduction check, that's going to come off it as well. I just mentioned the reduction check, the rebate that everyone should have received. That all must be considered when calculating that property tax credit. The one other thing, let's see, one other point I was going to throw in here. Star reduction. Yep, if I think of it later, I'll come back to it.
Lyle?
Yes.
Hang on one second. This is Ken.
Yes.
In our site, we had, if you go back, I think to the first thing with the property tax credit, yeah. It says you must qualify for star credit.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean you have to have the star credit, correct?
That is correct. You must qualify. There are very few who qualify but don't get it. And I'll be honest, if someone qualifies and they're not getting a star credit, that's something we could miss as preparers just because we don't necessarily know all the rules that are used on determining that.
Right. So if somebody moved to a new house and they didn't apply for the star credit, they could still get it even though they...
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Yep. Yes. So one of the things that we're very blessed with here in NY4 is, well, actually, I mean, first of all, ARP Tax Aid does a tremendous job in terms of training materials, in terms of resources that are available to help us in the preparation of taxes and everything else. As I mentioned earlier, everything is in the cloud that we do. There are times that a return is such that we have to end up doing a paper file, but again, everything we've done is through the computer, and in terms of pulling all the numbers together and everything that goes with that. Reference materials, we do have some paper, but we're quickly getting away from it for a couple of reasons. One, because online is so much quicker, easier, and better. And number two, it's up to date. It used to be 5-6 years ago, the main document we use, I would get the first draft, and then 4 weeks later, like the middle of January, they would come out with the revisions, and I might have to, out of a 200-page document, I might have to replace 10 pages because they updated them. Now it's getting that you have to replace half of it. So paper no longer makes sense, but we have easy online access. And to speak to that, matter of fact, what I'm going to do is, let's see, Steve, how do I get to picking another screen?
Stop sharing the current screen at the bottom center of the window.
Yeah, I mean where I don't have anything except little views of these slides.
There should be a button that says stop sharing screen. Oh yeah, to get out of presenter mode, maybe that will show it to you. Yeah, and then share screen again, and you can pick a different window.
Yep. So you could say this is someone that is extremely talented. And now all I've got is a small.
Click the zoom icon in the upper right corner.
Upper right corner. Got it. That one. So the...
And we're not, oh, there, now we're seeing it.
Okay, if you're seeing it, if you think this looks busy, it's because it is. You're absolutely correct. But the incredible thing here is, as an example, what we call a Pub 4012 is our Bible. This is actually written by the IRS, but then there's a team with AARP Tax Aid that goes through this to update it for our preparation, because there are certain things that are out of scope for us. Either because of the complexity or because they're so rare, it's not worth trying to become competent in how to handle them. But everything that you see under here is a link. As an example, one of the things that we do see that people do is that we do see them occasionally enjoy themselves by going to the casino. And when they do that, that means they're going to get a 1099-G back.
Bob?
Excuse me, a W-2G. Here it is, W-2G. Well, how are we supposed to handle that? We have, from the training team at ARP, a 3-page document that goes through the details of how to handle the various situations that may come in with that. Some of those get very complicated, but I don't need to remember it because I've got a link here that'll take me right to it. Let's look at New York State. We were just talking about the real property tax credit, which tax relief credit, I should say. If we want some help trying to figure that out instead of doing it in our head, here we go. Somebody's already put together a calculator that we can put in that AGI, and it will come back and say, oh, this is the minimum property tax you need to have for that AGI in order for that to work. We also have one of the other IRS Bibles, the 4491. And again, if I click on this, it's going to take me right to that document. I can go in and search for the exact resources that are needed for applying that. And as we come down to, you'll see all kinds of links here for everything back last year of looking up people's stimulus payments, property tax lookup. People forget to bring their property taxes up. We can go online and look up their property tax in terms of what they paid. We can also go in. I mentioned earlier, everyone that pays property taxes should have gotten a check in mid-June timeframe. We can go in and look up that check. If you have property and you're saying, well, geez, I didn't get it, we can go in and look it up and tell you, well, here's what you got. So that we can prepare an accurate return. But the gentleman who has pulled this together, I just can't imagine the amount of work that it goes into updating all these links and number one, building it to begin with and keeping them updated. And he does a fantastic job that allow Ken and I, when we're got a taxpayer on the other side, to quickly get the answers for the stuff that maybe our memories haven't held in terms of what we needed to do next.
Yeah, Lyle, if I can just piggyback on that.
Yep.
That tax helper is just invaluable to us because we are able to, very quickly get to a lot of different sites just in one document. And like you said, we can look up property taxes, we can look up any of the tax law, and sometimes there may be even things that were changed the week before that we didn't even know about that will go, that will be updated. And this is something that, just we use all the time. It's just such a great tool.
Okay, see if I can get back to the other presentation. Window. So, how do you find a site? www.aarp.org/taxaid. You go to that address. that will essentially ask you to put in a zip code, and then it will come back and it'll give you, I don't remember if it has also says within what mileage range you want, but essentially it'll come back and show you the tax sites that are available in our area. You'll see from this little map here, all of the red dots, all of those are the tax sites that we have. So there's one here, Pittsford, Penfield. There's one out here in Webster that's not showing up. But Hilton, we have one here in Spencerport, Riga, Chili. You'll see one down in Leroy. So going here will allow you to see where the sites are. And then from there, there's also contact information, generally a phone number that one would call to be able to get an appointment. So that was surfing through it. What questions did you not get a chance to ask as I was blowing through those slides?
I think first of all, what are the requirements to having, excuse me, you do someone's return?
Officially, there are no restrictions. The only limitations are if you have something that's unusual or unusually complex return, then that might touch on something that is out of scope. One example, I mentioned gambling. One example would be if someone's actually gambling for a living, you could say, so they're keeping very detailed records of each session of their expenses to go to get there, exactly how much they're spending on everything, and their winnings versus loss, that would be out of scope for us. That's getting too complex. If you own your own business and you show a loss, that's considered out of scope because it's getting into things that we might be missing. We do handle Schedule C. Generally, for most of the people we deal with, that's a very straightforward return. We don't deal with businesses that have inventory. So there are some things around the edges, but other than that, it's open to all ages, open to all incomes. Now, when someone comes in that has high income, they're 6 digits and getting above that, we'll generally have a discussion with them saying, we're here for everybody, but we'd really appreciate it if you would go to a paid preparer because we're really here for seniors and those who really don't have the resources to get their taxes done. But yep, open to all.
Yeah, that's one of the jokes about how rich people get their money is they never spend it on anything.
And that's true. And we've I usually have that conversation 3 or 4 times a year with those coming in who are very well off. And at least in our area, the sites all fill up. The tax site in Gates usually fills up literally within days of when they open. And usually Riga and Chili, my 2 sites, I get pretty well filled up. As we get toward the last 2 weeks, then we'll start running into no-shows because I think people got nervous about getting them done. They got them done elsewhere and never told us.
Now, Shirley said she read something that the IRS is saying wait to file, don't file yet. Are there still changes coming?
Somebody mentioned that today when they came in, that there was some change out there that they were recommending that people wait, but it was for a certain situation. But we haven't received any official communication on that.
I think it was on the national news tonight. They were saying that for states that had special rules for stimulus payment type stuff for businesses especially.
To that point, Carol, I know California, they have absolutely in California, they have recommended that they hold a moratorium on filing for a few days because payments that California made back to their residents, the IRS hasn't figured out how to deal with those as to are they taxable, aren't they taxable? Mm-hmm. And so absolutely in some of those situations like California, I'm unaware of anything affecting New York.
Let's see. So I found an article on CNN and I'm trying to see if it has a list of what states it says.
New York is not one.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we've, I remember now, I think we've done about 66 returns so far this year. So starting to roll. We get to the peak of the season, we'll be doing 100 a week. As has been obvious, who didn't know, Ken, I think this is Ken's maybe third year.
Second year.
Second year, okay. But Ken is volunteers through ARP Tax Aid and myself. So if you think of a question later, get back to either one of us and we'll help you find answers and figure out how to get through it.
And if anybody wants to be a volunteer, 2 years ago, I saw Lyle's presentation and contacted him. And I started last year, and I thought I knew taxes a little bit, but found out through an extensive training, really good trainers who take you through, and it's just an incredible program. Now I know what I didn't know.
You know more of what you didn't know.
And I
There's
still
still
don't
a lot
know
I don't know.
what I don't know. But anyway.
All right. It was very informative, Lyle.
You're always welcome.
I think for a lot of us, some of us have more easier income tax things than some of the more, I guess, unless you're more involved in stocks and bonds and interest and retirement pensions and all sorts of things that you may have contributed to over your working life, to have somebody help you through it all, I think.
Yeah, and especially those with simple returns. I mean, number one, we're here obviously to help, but also, I mean, a program like TurboTax, if you're not afraid of computers and you're not afraid of spending a little bit of time, if you take what they call their easy step, they will ask you a million questions to the point that you will have an accurate return when you're done. Now, mind you, don't expect to do it in a half hour, but they will let you walk through that on your own and ensure you have an accurate return. So, and like I said, I have experience with TurboTax. There are several good packages out there, and they're reasonable. They're less than a paid preparer.
All right. Does anybody else have questions for him?
See, and there we go. And if you wait, you can get a deal. I just got a deal, 40% off Quicken. Because I was waiting to renew our Quicken license until I got one of these really good deals. So 40% off was pretty good.
Wow.
So does that mean you bought Quicken then?
Yeah, I upgraded to the new version. They kept shaming me. It's been what, 3 months? No, it was the end of the year. Yeah, 3 months, and you haven't received any updates. That's okay.
That's right. I usually only update my Quicken every 3 years or so. So.
Well, they have minor updates and bug fixes.
I don't know how you do it. I can't stand doing my taxes. It's a horrible job.
That's why we're here.
I applaud you guys for doing all of that for everybody.
Not just his own, but hundreds of other people's. Actually, do you do your own? There's a question.
Yes, but interestingly enough, I do my own using TurboTax. One of the big reasons for that is because I've had some investments that had tails on them of like 15 years. So that meant using the same software, everything carried forward so that I didn't have to start from scratch when I was entering stuff. So my return is just simplify some after this year that I may go free. But similar to what you just said, Steve, on Quicken, when TurboTax comes out and say, yep, we got a new year, you're a preferred customer, here's a great break. No.
Yeah.
I wait several months and then they usually get it for $30 or $40 less than they were originally offering. So
the other thing we run into a lot with TurboTax is every year they up the system requirements. And so this year it requires OS 11. So we've had a lot of people coming in to get 11 on the machine. Last year, was everyone going to 10.15. So we're guessing next year it's going to need 12.
Probably.
Yep. But TurboTax does have a free version if you have super simple taxes. What does it say? W-2, limited 1099, standard deduction, standard child credits. So if you don't have itemized deductions, if you don't do unemployment insurance or the 1099-G, no stocks, no rental properties. So if you don't if you don't know how many other deductions you might be available for. So I remember one year we had our accountant do it, and then I did it again in TurboTax, and got the same number, which was handy.
Yeah.
He uses Lacert, which is Intuit's high-end tax preparation software for accountants.
Yep. We used to use, several years back, we used a product called TaxWise, and now for the last, I think this may be our 6th year, we're using a product called TaxSlayer. It has improved a lot since its early days, and they actually do a pretty good job of supporting it now as well.
I say this every year, but I just go through the New York State income tax site to the free preparer and pay nothing.
Right.
And granted, my finances are very simple, but believe me, the company that I picked a number of years ago was called Online Taxes out of St. Louis or someplace. And they cover everything. If you've got everything, they do a pretty good job. And in fact, the one trick that I have to remember is that $20,000 of my income is exempt from New York State taxation. And from year to year, I'm not sure how well they flag that point, but there's a space to enter it. But
Right.
I just kind of had to know it. But other than that, no problem.
Right, and that's limited to 20,000 because you have a private pension. For those who have a public pension in New York State, all of the pension is excluded.
Oh yeah.
Now, what do you think about it might be a controversial something, but about a flat tax? So the theory has always been the IRS knows what you owe, and they could send you a bill. It's right now you have to fill out these forms and guess what you owe, and if you guess wrong, you go to jail. Or if you don't pay enough, you go to jail. If you pay too much, you might not get the right amount of refund. But it's all the deductions and exclusions that most people don't know about.
Well,
but if everything was a flat 20% for everybody, would that help?
Can I butt in for a second here and just say that I think that what you're bringing up are two separate issues, because it has been proposed for a few years now that since the IRS has all your information to start with, they should just figure your taxes and send you a letter or whatever that says this is what your taxes are. And I won't get into how complicated a set of finances they could deal with and how much you might need or want to verify what they said. But the separate subject is a flat tax, which is a regressive tax, which would basically, put more of the tax burden on lower income people, I think.
Well, so as you said, Charlie, right, there are 2 points there. One of the big ones is the income tax program has been changed from taxing income to supporting every politician's pet projects. And those are called deductions, right? So the tax code has just been mired in so many deductions that there are a lot of cases where nobody can really figure out what the right way to do it was supposed to be. And generally speaking, a flat tax would be considered repressive. Absolutely agree, except, so let's look at some of the real high income folks that are out there, and because of the deductions they can take advantage of, the investments they can make. If you look at, applying, and I don't know what the number would be, but if I pulled a number out of the hat, if you said, gee, you know what, you need to have income over 30,000 before we're even going to look at you, and then after that it's 10% of everything you make. There are a number of high income people out there that would pay a lot more taxes than they're paying today. Yeah. And you could set that lower threshold in a way that would make it less repressive. The people we see with the highest taxes.
Scale.
Yeah. Well, right. The whole purpose initially, when there were a number of tax brackets, was for it to gradually increase the rate of tax you had to pay as your income went up. And, that's also been turned somewhat inside out. So the other big thing, Steve, would be if you really thought about going to a flat tax, which meant I got a threshold, there's no deductions, no complexity. What would you do with all the unemployed people? I mean, in truth, look at all the finance firms that are out there who their livelihood depends on the tax code.
Yeah, that was one of the
Interpreting it.
arguments, is that the H&R Block and Intuit have lobbied Congress to not do this.
Well, not only them, but also, I mean, you know, the big finance firms, because of the complexity of corporate taxation.
Yeah.
And I mean, and IRS wouldn't need nearly as many people to be checking on compliance. I mean, it would need, if they decided to go there, you'd need to walk into it gradually because of the impact to the overall economy.
Yeah. Well, and what was that last year? 10,000 new IRS agents were going to be hired over the next few years, but a lot of those are replacing people that are retiring. But it's the perception of the loopholes that the billionaires don't pay taxes because they can deduct everything.
Right.
And it's left on, you know, the poor working class to pay for everything.
Well, you know, that the finance part of the economy, that's, you're talking about your lawyers and your accountants and everything else. They would experience what other manufacturers and employees have experienced with the downturns in the economy, right? Maybe it's their turn.
Millions. That would be the same Paul
And-
Manafort who was indicted.
And to that point, we've paid very little in federal taxes for the last 10 years. And it isn't because of, quote unquote, you know, some might say it's because of loopholes, but it's because of, you know, understanding some of that code in terms of the types of investments that were used, you know, where the money was put, and how, as an example, HSAs, taking full advantage of something like that, it really helps minimize. So that's going to catch up with me shortly.
And on that point, one thing that disturbs me is the RMD. And in the last 2 years, they have shortened the life expectancy of a white guy by 2 years. And they've raised the RMD age to 73. So when you do begin your RMD, when you do begin your RMD, you look at your life expectancy, come up with a range of years between your actual age and the date that you're supposed to be dead. And let's say it's 15 years. You then take 1/15 of your IRA out each year. They have now compressed that by 3 years. In the last year and a half, we've lost 3 years of years to redeem, which means each redemption is going to be larger and higher taxed. So, welcome.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously the big purpose of that RMD is they're saying, you know what, we allowed you to put money away before paying taxes on it ahead of time, and we've allowed you to let that grow, but you know what, we really need to collect some tax revenue on that while you're still around. So when you start drawing that out, we're going to require you to draw some of it so we get some tax revenue coming back from it. I haven't looked at the most recent tables, but in the past, when you first hit it, the rate was somewhere in the 3.8 to 4.2% range that was required. And then, yeah, every year, the percentage that you have to take will ratchet up. But that's, they're trying to recoup some of what they didn't get earlier in terms of what's there. But to your point, Doug, if people don't plan for that, the year they hit it, they get into a really ugly surprise in a hurry.
And there's nothing that says that you have to wait until you reach the age of the RMD. You can start taking it out earlier, and then when the time does come, you're going to have less money in your account, so you're going to have to pay less, you know, in their RMD. So, you know, you can balance it out either way.
Cool. And that's where you do, that's what's known as financial planning, right? I mean, that's where you look at the bracket you're in, the bracket you're going to be. Are you going to move money from a regular RA into a Roth? Because once you get into the Roth, it can grow without incurring additional tax penalties.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of strategies that you need to look at in terms of how you address it. and that's generally best to do before you hit 70.
The problem is you never know how long you're going to live. If I'm not going to live very long, I can live it up. But if I'm going to live a long time, I'm going to be I need to be kind of sparse.
You're kind of gambling with how long you're going to live.
Yeah.
Well, I would say from the states I've been involved with and from what I've seen, I've only seen one ever have a soft landing, meaning either, they put money aside and because of growth, by the time they passed away, they had estates that were, several $100,000, or, they ran out of money and crashed and burned ahead of time and ended up on government support and stuff to get over the finish line. But it's very rare that you have a soft landing.
Can I re-ask a question about the New York State check that we received in late spring?
Yes.
I need to subtract that dollar amount from the amount of taxes I paid to the town and county.
Correct. You would subtract that both for calculating the New York State tax credit, property tax credit, as well as if you're able to itemize in New York State, that would reduce your property taxes paid for itemizing as well.
And also, you got to back out your start credit if you got a check. You get a start check and the HTRC check. You have to back both of those out of the taxes.
Yep.
That's why they say death and taxes are the only sure things.
Yeah. The one thing that's been better this year, at least we didn't get into the tax season and then have them retroactively change it. At least not yet. We had that 2 years ago.
All right. Well, thank you, Lyle.
Okay. You're welcome.
Lyle, good job.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to talk about, or do we want to end the meeting? It's 9:30 on the dot.
What's our topics for next month?
Elections.
Elections.
And what else did we have? I don't think we had anything specific yet.
April is going to be password management with Ken and Steve.
That's April.
But,
yep.
It's April. We need
but March is just elections and probably Q&A and Apple News.
See what shows up. There's often announcements in March. Although we got them in January, so we may not get any in March.
What about getting Phil Dampier to do a talk for us?
I noticed that Amazon Smile is ending.
Yeah, we should mention that, and then Rick will talk about Phil. So Amazon Smile has decided to shut down their Smile service, and they're going to donate money their own way now. And a lot of nonprofits and small organizations are losing a major source of income. We were using Smile. Let me see if I can get into the limit. It will probably be in the report we do next month.
As you're looking that up, I'm going to say adios and bow out, but we'll catch you next month or the month after.
Alrighty. Thank you, Lyle. Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
Lyle.
Thanks for what you do. Thank you. You and Ken.
Logged into me or CIDER? Yeah, log into CIDER. So they are some of the larger organizations. I listened to Mike Rowe on his podcast, and they're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars in income. That that millions of people are buying little things with them as the charity.
Which charity?
Mike Rowe Works. They're blue collar, basically promoting blue collar jobs instead of the notion that you have to go to college. You go to college, get a good job, retire in 40 years, and that doesn't happen anymore. I can't find our. There's a link. Here we go. Amazon's this one that tells us how much we've done on our Amazon Smile page. But it's been a couple $100 we get, especially at Christmas time when a lot of people buy larger things. So if you are planning on buying anything soon, please use the CIDER link. And let's see, when does it end?
When does it go?
February 20th.
Oh,
It will
going
be
to
shut
get a
down.
couple weeks there.
Yeah, so if you're going to buy something, buy it in the next couple of weeks, especially something big, so we get one last check. Because they shut down our affiliate referral link last year, and now they're shutting down Smile, so we're losing all of our referral links. That's a little frustrating. And then, yeah, Phil, I've been trying to get a hold of Phil and Jerry for years, and they don't seem to answer their emails. I may have to jump onto Rochester Google's, because Jerry runs that group, and maybe
You're talking about Jerry Seward?
Right, Jerry Seward, yeah, and he might be able to help track down Phil. But I've got Phil's private email address, I thought, and he just never seems to answer. Maybe he's just too busy. But yeah, so he runs the Stop to Cap we talked about earlier, and keeps up on all the streaming and broadband issues. But yeah, if anyone else has any ideas for meetings, send it on to the board. Any one of the board members can take some meetings. If you want to present a meeting, that would be even better. So we like having other people present stuff.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I think we can call it, Shirley.
All right, so let's officially end the meeting then. It's 9:34, and I hope everything is good to our board meeting next week, day after Valentine's Day. Hopefully the weather will still be good. I see the weather's supposed to be good up in the 50s for the next almost week.
Woohoo.
I guess we missed the snow again.
Yay. It's supposed to be very windy tomorrow night into the overnight.
So at least we've
But
had,
other than that, okay.
we've had cold weather, we've had frigid weather, but we just really haven't had the snow part of it so much.
And I don't miss it one bit.
Yeah,
Me neither.
I'm
Me
good
neither.
with it.
Although that often does mean there's not enough water, for spring and plants.
Well, that depends on how much it
We'll
rains.
get a bunch of rain.
We've had rain, and
Yeah.
and more rain's coming. So
It says it's supposed to rain tomorrow.
yeah,
So as soon as the weather warms up, the rain's usually right behind it. So it's coming from somewhere. So we'll see. But all right.
Trouble with winter rain is it runs off. Snow packs up and it drains off slower in the spring.
Yeah, they said that about the torrential rains in California a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Didn't help their drought much because so much came down so fast it just overflowed the storm drains and ran into the ocean.
Yep,
they couldn't collect it.
People are talking about shipwrecks that are being discovered again as Lake Mead dries up and water levels are down.
And lithium underneath Salton Sea in California, which will help the car rebate problem.
Yeah. Now we won't have to buy so much lithium
Find
from
more
Afghanistan.
lithium in America, then more cars will qualify for the $7,500 tax credit.
Nice.
Well, all right. Well, I guess we'll see everybody from the board next week. Everybody else, we'll see you next month at Election Day. Do we have
Sounds
some red,
good.
white, and blue banners to hang up?
Yeah.
Election day.
Get your bunting.
Huh?
Get your bunting ready.
Yeah, bunting.
Are we going to
Good
do
night,
this?
everybody. Thank you. Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Okay, we're
Good
gone.
night.
Steve,
Bye-bye.
are we doing the
Good night.
same thing this year with the voting online?
Yeah, we'll do an online vote ballot again this year since.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on
I doubt we're going to have an in-person meeting.
next Wednesday. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All righty. Good night, all.
See you everybody.
All right. Cheerio. I can never get off here.
I'm gonna get out of here.